Hi ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. LaJoy here. Today we're going to look at solving equations that contain fractions. So we are solving for an unknown, but we have the complication of our question containing fractions. So this is solving equations with fractions. All right, so let's take an example of this question here. We have 6 equals 1 over 3 times 8 plus x. So really what we want to do here is figure out what x is. So eventually we're going to isolate for x. But the first thing we should do is get rid of this fraction because it complicates things. So what we want to do is, in order to eliminate this fraction, we have to do the opposite operation. So I need you to remember this, opposite operation. That is how we eliminate something, is to use the opposite operation. So the opposite of addition is subtraction. The opposite of division is multiplication. So when we have a fraction, that is division, right? We have one thing over another thing, 1 divided by 3. So in order to eliminate this 1 over 3, we have to do the opposite operation. So we're going to multiply by 3, right? So whatever I do to one side of an equation, I have to do to the other. That's our big rule. So if I'm going to multiply the right side by 3, I have to multiply the left side by 3. So I'm going to multiply 3 times 6 equals 3 times 1 over 3, 8 plus x. Okay, so 3 times 6 is 18. Now on the other side, if I multiply 3 times 1 over 3, you have to remember that there is that imaginary 1 underneath any whole number. So when I multiply fractions, I multiply the top numbers and I multiply the bottom numbers. So what I'm going to get here, if I multiply this, is 3 times 1 is 3. And 1 times 3 is 3. So that's 3 over 3. So I don't even have to write anything here. It's a 1. So this is just going to become 8 plus x. Because really, this 1 outside of the bracket just means 1 multiplied into the bracket. Well, if I multiply 1 into this bracket, 1 times 8 is 8, and 1 times x is x. So I don't even need to write that next step of the 1 outside the bracket. You can, but it's not necessary. So we have 18 equals 8 plus x. So in order to solve this now, we have to get x by itself. So I'm going to take this 8 and move it to the other side. This is a positive 8, so when it moves to the other side, it becomes negative 8. So I have 18 minus 8 equals x. So 18 minus 8 is 10. So therefore, 10 equals x. Remember that you can check your answer by taking this answer, this 10, and plugging it in for x in the original question. If you work it out and both sides equal 6, then it's correct. You've made a true statement because this question really is saying everything on this side of the equation is equal to everything on this side of the equation. So we're proving that it is true. So if you plug this 10 in for x and work it out, the left and right side should both be equal to x. Now the second part of this video, I want to look at another example. So if we have a question, for example, where we have 3 times y minus 5, that's a y, over 4 equals 7. So we have this giant fraction here, 3 times y minus 5 over 4. So again, just like in the last question, we want to get rid of this fraction because it complicates things. So the bottom of this fraction is a 4. So what I'm going to do to eliminate the fraction is I'm going to multiply both sides of this fraction by 4. So what that looks like is 4 times 3 is y minus 5 over 4 equals 7, also times 4. So these two 4's will eliminate each other, and I'm going to be left with 3 times y minus 5 equals, now 7 times 4 is 28. So now what I have to do is I have to use my distributive property. And multiply the 3 into this bracket. So 3 times y gives us 3y, and 3 times negative 5 gives us negative 15, equals 28. Remember that we want to isolate our variable, and our variable in this question is y. So I'm going to leave the 3y on this side, but I'm going to move the negative 15 to the other side. So remember, negative 15 on this side becomes a positive 15 on the other side. So I have 3y equals 28 plus 15. Now 28 plus 15 is 43. So I have 3y equals 43. Now to get the y by itself, I have to detach this. Remember, this means 3 times y, so that is multiplication. The opposite of multiplication is division, so I will divide by 3, but if I divide one side by 3, I have to divide the other side by 3. So these two 3's will cancel out, and I'm left with y equals 43 over 3. Now this won't work out to a whole number. This would be 3 goes into 43 14 times, and we would have 1 left over. 14 and 1 over 3. Or we could do 43 divided by 3, which would give us 14.3. All of those answers are correct. It just doesn't work out to a nice, pretty whole number. We have either a decimal or a fraction here. So there's our answer, but we know that y is equal to any one of these things. So again, if we took this answer, if we took, for example, probably what would be easiest is took our decimal and plugged it in. So if we plugged 14.3 in for y and solved, both sides of this equation should equal 7.